Nobody wants to be lied to their face. The problem is we are human beings, and as the years tick by, one thing that we did say in the past, when it's no longer relevant, it actually does become true, and then we have to cry into our underwear. I don't know why I said that. So let's not try to focus too much on the word line. Remember that we all go through experiences. So really, here are 10 times wrestler said something, and then yes, things changed, and they kind of had to dial it back. Number 10, Kurt Angle chose Baron Corbin himself. So you do have to feel for Kurt Angle, because ever since he did return to WWE after his TNA run, it just felt like Vince McMahon was never going to push him in the way we hoped he was pushed. Remember the way that AEW retired Sting? That's what we should have done for our Olympic gold medalists. Angle's last hurrah in the WWE came in 2019 as well, and even though he pushed to have John Cena retire him at WrestleMania, it was McMahon that said, nope, we're going to put Baron Corbin in this spot instead. And as I have said time and time again, this would have been completely cool if we had pushed Corbin afterwards, but we did not. Nobody came out of this any better. The issue was, after a Raw show, when the WWE cameras caught up with Kurt on the 18th of March, he was all like, listen, this wouldn't have been my pick. When a week went by and he said, what I meant to say is that I most definitely chose Baron Corbin. By that point, nobody was believing it at all. It was just too see-through. Now, of course, this was completely innocent by Angle, who had probably been told he needed to do some damage control, but really this was the issue with WWE in 2019. They heard the audience, and do you know what they did? They totally ignored them. So I let everybody off the leash here, apart from Vince McMahon. He knew what he was doing. Number 9, the attendance of WrestleMania 32. So listen, I actually enjoy it when a wrestling company looks at an attendance number for a show and says, do you know what we should do? We should inflate this. I mean, who's gonna know? Why WWE continues to insist on this is a little bit strange, because they're a publicly traded company, so eventually the real statistics have to get out there, otherwise it's basically illegal. Given that The Rock did turn up to WrestleMania 32 and set his name on fire, everybody agreed it would be great he announced the record-shattering figure down in Texas, and he said 101,763. This, of course, was in AT&T Stadium, but even if you do a quick Google, it will tell you the maximum capacity is around about 80,000. The reason this one will blow your brain, though, is that WWE did do close to that number, and yet they still felt the need to exaggerate it. 80,000 people is absolutely ridiculous, but I guess they just wanted to break the big 100,000. That may have been one too many zeros. So yes, everybody knew what they were doing here, including the fans, and I suppose the worst one would be going back to 1987 and talking about WrestleMania 3. But I'm not going to do that because people lose their minds, and ultimately, I don't actually care. Number 8, the Ultimate Warrior tells a whopping lie. So there was always a lot of controversy regarding the Ultimate Warrior for a lot of reasons, but actually it all kicked off during his heyday when he continually fell out with Vince McMahon. The problem with the real-life Jim Hellwig is that eventually he just stopped turning up to house shows, and this was a big no-no for Vince because if he's advertised you, he wants to make sure that gets delivered for the audience, otherwise a fan could ask for a refund, and what was he going to do? Say no? Impossible. So when this happened for the umpteenth time, Vince McMahon decided to fire the Ultimate Warrior, who came back and told his boss that no, the only reason I missed a house show is because my father passed away. Now, of course, that would have been totally fair enough, and everybody should be allowed to take time off when they do lose a loved one. When it was revealed that the Warrior and his father actually had a rough relationship, and they hadn't seen each other for years. What was actually going on was huge licensing disagreements that were going to end in a lawsuit between the Ultimate Warrior and the WWE. So in order to try and get out of this, well, the Ultimate Warrior just told a bit of a fib. Now actually this goes a lot deeper and there are a ton of stories that we could get into here, but we don't have time. But they are not good, my friends. They are not good at all. Number 7, Shawn Michaels needs to vacate the title. So this one really is shoot and work coming together, and it all happened on a Raw that went down on a Thursday on the 13th of February 1997. Because at least one doctor had gone to Shawn Michaels and said, listen, you need to step away from the ring at least for a little while. You've got a serious knee injury, and we need to deal with it. The issue was the Heartbreak Kid was the world champion at the time, so yes, Shawn walked to the ring and dropped the whole losing my smile speech, and that he may be going away from WrestleMania forever. If nothing else, he was being deleted from the WrestleMania 13 plans. He was going to miss that show. Instantly won Bret Hart was spectacle, and I suppose he had every right to be. He had been told one of the reasons he was dropping the title the year prior to Shawn Michaels is because he was going to win it back in 12 months' time. Then these two had fallen out backstage, and here we were on the verge of Mania 13, and Shawn Michaels wasn't going to be available. So once again, I think the true facts here fall somewhere in the middle. I do think Michaels was injured, but he also probably laid it on a little bit thick. Bret once again was on the case as he pointed out that after Shawn had talked about this, he went and performed a backflip off the top rope. And that's a little bit like robbing a bank and then going back into the bank and saying, I robbed you. It's only fair to say that Michaels has denied all this, and what really is important is that these days, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels at the very least are cordial. We don't need any more craziness in the world of pro wrestling, but yeah, given where Shawn Michaels was at the time, probably was another little bit of an exaggeration. Number 6, the McMahons and Triple H say that you're in charge. So the reason this one was so egregious is that it went down on the 18th of December 2018 Raw. And as we've already talked about, 2019 in its entirety in WWE was terrible, so Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Shane McMahon and Triple H walking to do the opening promo for Raw and saying that now they were going to listen to the fans. Well, yeah, when it comes to this one, it was an outright lie. What's even worse is they kind of put the blame on the shoulders of one Baron Corbin, a poor guy who had been made an authority figure and told over and over again, you need to keep going out for this segment. Nobody was going to be able to survive that. Even Steve Austin would have had his limit. There's also a terrible line here because they actually said from this moment on, you are the authority. Well, listen, I'm a fan, and did anybody ever ring me up? No. Did I get an email? No. So what the flub were they talking about? I actually think if 2019 had improved, nobody would be talking about this, but it was so damn bad. We had the Hell in a Cell match, we had the dog food angle, and we had Bobby Lashley's sisters. And that's just the start of it. So if you ever come across this bit, it's not true. Number 5, Stephanie McMahon loves Big Show as a kid. So some wrestling lies are so brazen that you have to stand there and check that you're not the crazy one, because surely somebody thought about this and went, we can't possibly do it. And then they went and did it anyway. So it is absolutely mad that the Raw writers back in 2013 figured they could slip this gem of a statement in from Stephanie McMahon without any pushback from the audience. Once again, the authority was brainwashing the Big Show, because why wouldn't you do that? When an emotional Stephanie said that the Big Show was her childhood hero. So I guess what we were essentially doing was kind of making Show the unofficial uncle of Andre the Giant, who certainly was somebody that Stephanie McMahon looked up to when she was a kid. The reason why it is BS though is because the maths doesn't work. There is exactly 4 years, 7 months and 16 days between the pair in age, so how the hell could she have looked up to him? What's even worse is that everybody could tell this was a pile of nonsense, and even those that went, well, she's trying to emotionally manipulate the Big Show, he still has a calculator. I'm pretty sure he could have figured it out too. Even when Paul White's The Giant character debuted in WCW, it was 1995, and by that point, Stephanie McMahon was 19 years of age. This was so preposterous and chronologically flawed, well, kind of ties into WWE at the time. They really thought they could get away with murder. Number 4, John Cena's whoopsie with The Rock. Now, once again, we do have to point out that as I sit here today, The Rock is fine with John Cena and John Cena is fine with The Rock, and Cena has come out and said, listen, I've made a mistake here. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm very, very sorry. That's all that matters. But of course, if we do go back to the feud between the Great One and the Man That Can't Be Seen, John Cena's big problem with Rocky was that he kept saying he'd come back to the WWE before leaving it for Hollywood. And do you know who would never do that? John Cena. Well, you can already see where this is going. Now, to be fair, Cena really was a WWE superstar until the wheels came off, but it is quite difficult to point the finger at Hollywood before you use your wrestling platform to go to Hollywood. I'm just pretty happy with this because, of course, The Rock opened the biggest door, which allowed John Cena to go through, but they both make quite entertaining movies, and some of them are super over the top. So at least we get that, I suppose. But it's another one of those situations, my friends. Just think about what you are saying. You do not know where you're going to be in 10 years. Number 3, CM Punk will never return to wrestling. Now, I actually think CM Punk meant this at the time because he was so convincing. I used to say on videos constantly, there is no way this can go down. That's why you never say never in pro wrestling. Of course, a lot of the questions to Mr. CM Punk came after he did leave WWE in 2014, and by that point he was totally burnt out on sports entertainment, so yeah, he likely did think he was done with wrestling forever. He said that to Chris Van Vliet and other media outlets. And also, he went and tried his hand at MMA. I suppose the only other criticism is that people hoped to see him in a Ring of Honor or TNA, but he decided against that. And even in 2019, when he signed on to be part of the WWE backstage crew on Fox, well, even then it didn't feel like he was going to step back into the ring. And if that wasn't going to make it work, all bets were off. Then, of course, 2021 came around and Punk did come back to an AEW ring. What's even more crazy is that he did the same with WWE in 2023. And all you have to do is go over a few posts from the last decade, and nobody would have believed this, maybe even Punk himself. Thing is, when you do Google that, you also found this statement: he did not think he was ever going to return. Number 2, Hulk Hogan doesn't take steroids. So if you have seen the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix, you know that everybody here was lying. During Hulk Hogan's sit-down, he even says, "Yep, I shouldn't have gone on the Arsenio Hall show in 1991 and said I did not do steroids." Because I did, and everybody was about to find out. Vince McMahon gets into the details here too, and he is furious that Hogan had done this, and had even said to him before the appearance, "Just tell the truth, it'll be good PR, and finally we can put this behind us." Nope, if nothing else, it's a dumb thing to do because Hulk Hogan was the size of a house at this point, and it would have just told the little Hulkamaniacs, "Listen, you do need some chemical assistance to get to my size, so just go to the gym, train hard, and even if you're not as big as me, it really doesn't matter." It also didn't help with the WWF steroid scandal, and it put a right line between Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan, which would kind of go on for years. I mean, at the time, everybody knew what was going on, but Hulk still chose to do this. It was not the right plan. Number 1, Ric Flair says he'll never wrestle again. So given that I was at WrestleMania 24 and saw the awesome retirement match between Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair, I decided to buy in. Then got even better 24 hours later when he did say goodbye on Raw. I mean, that was one of the best send-offs ever. I think at the time Flair must have believed something because he did bawl his eyes out, although he did like to cry. But then almost within 12 months, he was back in TNA. What the flub is going on? From there, he just kept wrestling and wrestling and wrestling, and even had a match in 2022, which was billed as his last match ever. I mean, can anybody actually believe that now? Hopefully nobody would sign off on this because that thing was terrifying. But given that WrestleMania 24 happened in 2008, and I just mentioned 2022, well, I don't think we can believe anything. This actually comes down to quite an emotional story because it just feels like Flair can't leave the limelight behind. That's a horrible thing to think about. Also seems to be somewhat of a troubled individual today, so yeah, we'll leave it there. But this could be a Terry Funk situation. He is never gonna retire.